The verdict is in on the Gwyneth Paltrow ski crash case. And when the verdict comes in, everybody thinks, okay, then it's over. But it's not. Hang on to that thought for a second. I'm coming at this from a threat assessment perspective because that's my area of expertise. It may seem counterintuitive, but when somebody launches a frivolous lawsuit against you, that can be actually a good thing. I know that sounds weird, but what it means is that they are taking legal means, a legal path to get to you or to deal with you or get what they want. And that's good. It's when all legal paths have been exhausted that things can go really bad. This is not a proper threat assessment, what I'm about to do. So Ms. Paltrow's executive protection team will have asked all of the questions I'm going to ask, will have noticed all of the things that I've noticed, and then some, and they have more information than I do. The purpose of this video is educational. As we go through this, and you think about applying this information to your own life, always remember that you have to consider context and combinations of behaviors. There are some behaviors and traits that are threat indicators all on their own, but in most cases, you need combinations of traits and behaviors. And right off the hop, litigiousness is an indicator that warrants further examination. So if you've got someone launching a lot of lawsuits, stupid lawsuits, complaining at work all the time, making formal complaints, that sort of thing, that litigiousness is an indicator that you need to look further. And in Mr. Sanderson's case, well, he's sued Ms. Paltrow, and I understand he's suing Deer Valley. I'm not sure if that's true. Maybe somebody can let me know in the comments whether or not that's a fact. So let's get into it. Watch here as he puts his hand to his heart. So this gesture of his, as you'll see as we go through this, is a quirk that he has. It's a habit. It's something he does all the time. So on the one hand, you can think, okay, that's just part of the way he is. But when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking of a couple of things. And one is, first of all, it's a show. Everybody does this from time to time in certain circumstances. It's a normal sort of gesture. In some cases, this gesture is a way to draw you in, is a way to try to connect with you. And the fact that this is a habit for him makes me question, why is this a habit for him? Does he routinely use this as a way to draw people in or give the impression that he is a compassionate, nice, from the heart kind of guy? And so is that sort of impression management? As we go through, I think it is. I think it's a show. He doesn't do this gesture while he's taking the oath. He does it while he's walking past the jury. So, and he does it, you'll see later, he does it when he's looking at the judge. It's like this false humility and false deference. And that kind of thing is manipulation.
Try to ask questions very directly and just have you say yes or no.
If I can, I will.
Did you, upon filing your lawsuit in a press conference, compare my client to King Kong coming out of the jungle? Yes or no?
That was not my intention.
Did you do that? Did I make up those words, or are those your words to the press?
I'm not sure, but probably sounds familiar.
Do you dispute it?
I dispute my intentions, that's all.
King Kong coming out of the jungle.
Press conference.
Pardon?
Press conference. I was pretty...
Did you say those words about my client?
I meant to say King Kong just chased someone out of the jungle. That's what I meant.
Did you refer to her as Godzilla to your daughter?
I did not. I don't remember that.
She testified to that.
I don't remember that. It's gone. Sorry.
Deception, vilification, reversing the victim and offender status, taking the victim stance, blaming other people, those are all big red flags. He denies and deflects and equivocates on things that are easily provable and clear. Here and elsewhere, as we go along, you will see that he remembers details that aren't really important, and he has no problem throwing those out. But there are things that are important, that are emotional, that mean something, that can change the course of how things go, that he conveniently doesn't remember. So this is manipulation. You have to look at why somebody is being deceptive. Is it embarrassment? Is it they're trying not to hurt your feelings? Or is it they're trying to manipulate and gain? In this case, it's straight up manipulation. He wants the narrative to be what he wants it to be, and it's going to change. You'll see as we go through. He rewrites history too. So the fact that he is deceiving to manipulate is a concern. And the other little bit of this is in his deception, one of the things he's doing is avoiding taking responsibility. And you'll see this all the way through too. He blames everybody else. Nothing is his fault. Whether it's relationships, whether it's the incident, whether it's anything else, he does not accept responsibility. And somebody who does not accept responsibility can't change, can't improve, and that is cause for concern.
Is this you wheels up at Salt Lake bound for Europe the year after the collision?
That's the empty seat next to me that Robin was supposed to sit in and told me she didn't like me anymore, that my personality changed.
Did you go to Europe and did you post this? Wheels up bound for Europe.
I posted it.
It doesn't say, I'm really sad that my girlfriend won't come with me. It doesn't say that. It's
Nope.
like,
Nope.
okay.
I
Page
just
60,
wasn't sure that would happen.
68.
I couldn't go by myself anymore. And I found that out the hard way when Robin decided that she didn't like me anymore after 5 years.
He lost his girlfriend. That's a trigger. It's a precipitating factor. Now, this happened in 2017. I'm interested if somebody can tell me when he launched the lawsuit, if it was around the same time as this loss, because that would give us some more information. If you listen to his voice, you can hear he's angry. He's not sad. He posts that he's happy. He's angry. He blames her. She left. She doesn't like him anymore. It couldn't possibly be that maybe he did something. Maybe he didn't treat her in the way that he should. But the blame is fully on her, and he transfers some of the blame to Gwyneth Paltrow as well. But he cannot blame himself. He doesn't sit back and have some insight about, gee, maybe I need to do something differently. It's always somebody else's fault. And he will have you believe that, you'll see as we go along, he will have you believe that strong women are a good thing and that he loves women. And I'm going to suggest to you right now that he actually has a problem with women. So I think he has a problem with anger. I'm hearing venom in his voice. And he's trying to hide that. But he can't help it. This is how he feels. So he's not sad. He's angry. And I'm going to also suggest that the reason that he posted that picture of the empty seat saying great time or whatever it was not for anybody else, but for Robin. He was trying to stick it to her. He was sending her a message with that Facebook picture. And that tells me also that he likes to lash back at people. This guy is privileged. He's painting Gwyneth Paltrow as some elite, privileged King Kong princess or something. Anyway, but he's privileged. And I think he would hope that people sort of gloss over that, because he wants to be the poor victim at the same time as being superior. He's a white guy, he had status, he has the money to be able to travel around, he has the money to hire lawyers to launch a ridiculous lawsuit. He is used to getting what he wants, especially from women. And when he doesn't get what he wants, he doesn't like it. His response to not getting what he wants speaks to who he is behind that facade of the sweet, kindly, friendly guy that he wants us all to think he is. If he can't help himself but to lie, and his anger seeps out, and his arrogance and superiority seep out, and the victim stance and the blaming others have already all seeped out of him. The manipulation. If he's like that, when he's supposed to be on his very best behavior, what is he like behind closed doors with a woman who tells him no? Now, I'm not making an allegation here. I'm asking a question. Now, his daughter does say that she never even heard him raise his voice before. And so you're hearing contradictory evidence. So you're seeing with your own eyes that anger that's obviously there. Yet, she's saying something completely different. When you see contradictory evidence, especially when you're looking at whether or not some situation or person in a situation is a threat, look at it this way. You are with your friend and you see smoke and you say, I think that house is on fire, I see smoke. And your friend says, oh no, I've been in that house. There is no fire in that house. There's never been a fire in that house. Well, you know what? There might be a cigarette in the couch that's been smoldering for a really long time. And that smoldering couch is going to burst into flames if something isn't done. So if you see smoke, even if you don't see fire, look. You look until you find the source, and then you can deal with it.
I couldn't go by myself anymore.
He says he couldn't go alone anymore. And again, you hear the anger about Robin. I'm going to suggest to you that it's not that he couldn't go by himself. It's he didn't want to. He was asked if he traveled alone before, and he says he did, but nobody asked him when or to where or for evidence of that. And given his behavior, I don't know that I believe him.
Now, which daughter was that?
Jenny B.
That's Jenny. That's the Jenny that we've heard all about, that said all kinds of nasty things about you.
There's that cigarette smoldering in the couch.
Floor.
At the time I thought that, but I was not making good decisions, and that sort of near-death experience happened twice again.
Another near-death experience was you were cutting a cardboard box and cut your leg. Is that true?
With the box cutter, yes. Through the femoral artery. Looked like a murder scene.
And you blame Miss Paltrow for all three of those near-death experiences after, true?
I don't know if I said that.
Are you claiming it right now in this lawsuit?
Yes, very unusual.
Near death. Like a murder scene. How dramatic. He's taking the victim's stance. And when I talk about this as a threat indicator, I'm not talking about actual victims. I'm talking about someone who reverses victor-offender status to blame the other. And I'm also talking about somebody who uses a false victimhood as a way to exploit, to manipulate, to tap into your emotions. The emotions he wants you to feel are not the emotions he's feeling. He wants to exploit your empathy. Wound collectors do this, and it's a scary thing because they then can use that even in their own minds to justify whatever action that they're going to take. And if somebody can justify in his or her own mind, and especially if other people agree with him and go along with it, that, oh yeah, he's the victim and it's all so unjust, that gets us a step further down a bad road. Because one of the things that has to happen before somebody actually acts out or lashes out is that they have to justify that action somehow in their mind. And if you believe or you convince yourself that you're the victim, that it's what's been done to you is outrageous and unjust and terrible, near death, right? And it's somebody else's fault, he then has justification to take whatever action he wants to get his version of justice. And people use this as an excuse because sometimes justice for them is exacting punishment or taking revenge. This thing of taking the victim stance combined with, this sort of outrage and wanting justice, combined, those two things are more than a red flag. They're screaming alarm bells.
What kind of relationships did you have with your girls before this crash?
My girls are always angels. I'm their protector. Some things happened to them. I'm testifying that I heard about it. It hurts to see them in that place as their protector. I rode home with them and started sobbing, so I get caught up in that.
Do you love your girls?
Oh my gosh.
There's been some discussion of
Protector, not parent, friend, but protector. And that's significant. The look on his face as he's saying this is not about how he feels. It's about trying to make you feel something or make the jury feel something. He's not actually feeling the thing that he wants you to feel. That's obvious manipulation. And the whole hand to heart thing, here it is again. It's a habit. And some might argue, oh, well, it's a quirk he has. I'm saying this, in his case, is manipulation. And look at the expression on his face at the end. He looks up like, are you buying this? The word protector suggests something about his idea of masculinity and how important masculinity is to him and how he wants people to see him. Caring about how people see you it's a natural thing. It can be a concern if the person feels like they've lost their entire reputation, if they feel shamed, that can drive a person to act out. On the flip side, it can be a protective factor in the sense that, look, I'm not going to do anything stupid because I don't want to risk my reputation. I don't want to lose any more than I already have lost, that sort of thing. So that indicator, that issue can go both ways.
Jenny and I probably don't communicate as well as I do with my other two daughters. Not probably, definitely we don't. We just have a hard time in that process, and I will not give up. I try to push to keep those lines open, but there's been times when there's been long breaches in our conversation. And yeah, I feel like her protector more than anybody does. So it's been harder for me to transition from being a parent to being an adult, an equal adult. I just feel like I need to intervene more on her behalf and help her. It's been hard.
He says he wants to intervene more. He also uses the word push for like pushing that connection. That's not about protecting or relationship. That's about control. She's an adult. If she's saying no and he needs to push, he needs to intervene, she's a grown person. So that's cause for concern. That is telling me this guy is controlling. I mean, I feel like I'm just repeating things because he's showing from the get-go that he is controlling, that he is manipulating, that he is vilifying, he is blaming everybody else. I mean, this stuff is all over the place, but we're just going to keep going through. Just a note on controlling behavior, because he's talking about intervening with his daughter and being a parent, and it's sometimes controlling behavior is masked as, well, I'm just doing this for your own good, or well, I'm just trying to help, or I care about what happens to you, so I'm going to meddle, or I'm going to try and exert control, or I'm going to manipulate or not tell you things, or whatever it is that is controlling. And that whole business of, well, I'm just doing it for your own good, it's gaslighting. And it may even, the person may even have convinced himself that that's really what he's doing. I think I'd want to examine more closely this guy's relationships with women. I'm seeing patterns of behavior. So this isn't sort of a one-off, so, dad meddled in something, and then we're going to just call him controlling. That's not it. People make those kind of mistakes all the time. This is a continued pattern of behavior, a pattern of thinking. And it's in combination with other behaviors and thinking patterns that are cause for concern.
Let's talk about Carlene. We heard her testify last week. She's a catch. Why'd you let her go?
In my choice, I wouldn't have, but I had to, after 8 months, I had to tell her to leave. I said, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, you gotta leave. And
why'd you tell her to leave?
Coming into a relationship, and I said, I'm not sure I'm going to get back to normal again. And I don't want you to feel like that I'm a crippled vet and you're going to stick it out with me because I know you would. Half a brain or whatever. I know you would, but don't do it. You need your life. You run right now. And it was a sad time for both of us, I know. And she's in a great relationship with Bill now. And that was the purpose. And I think better than what I would have brought, honestly. It's hard to admit that, but it's true.
The grief here is real. What I don't believe is what's coming out of his mouth. I don't think that's true. I'm seeing hints of this sort of savior martyr thing, which is another indicator. He's already demonstrated he needs other people to see him in a certain way, and he needs to uphold his own vision of himself. Masculinity is important to him. Control is important to him. Superiority is important to him. So he's got this, you know, and taking the victim stance. So he's got this savior martyr thing going on. And he's going to save her from him. And he's full of malarkey. Along with this sense of needing to get justice, this savior martyr thing plays into helping a person deal with cognitive dissonance and get to a place where they can justify acting out or taking action. And the justification is for past behavior, but also future behavior.
I knew she didn't buy into this. She didn't buy into me not being the same person and coming.
The truth comes out.
Did you, with regard to Carlene, it sounds like you shut it down. You shut the relationship down. Is that true?
I made a very strong statement that she was going to be better off without me, yes.
And you told her that?
Yes.
So Carlene was here a couple days ago and said, he never told me. Did you tell her? I had no idea why.
I told her what I said. What I thought I said was, Carlene, you got to run. I don't want you stuck with me. And I know you would stay by me. I know she would.
I just remember it took forever to get past her, and there were skis. Now
There were skis? What? Where were there skis? Whose skis? What were they doing? When there were skis? Like this is an obvious sort of flag to look at the statement more closely or to ask more questions. He does something else. Heard this, saw, it just hit me. And I think he's talking about getting hit on the slope, and he can't do it well because it didn't happen.
Now your right eye has problems, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Not a little bit.
Yes, a little bit.
Blind.
No.
You told 3 of your providers at the VA, I'm blind in my right eye.
I use the word loosely.
You used it, and you're an optometrist, right?
I did.
All right. So let's not say little bit, because that's pretty different from blind.
It is.
This is a scream. I love the looks on the lawyer's face. So he's blind when it suits him, but later, and I'll show you a clip, he says he has no limitations. So he's claiming he's blind because he can get VA benefits, but when that might be an issue for him getting what he wants from Gwyneth Paltrow, oh no, he has no limitations, not even for driving. He's fine. So he's using, I'm not saying he doesn't have disabilities. I'm not saying that at all. But he's exploiting it. He's using it. And he's an optometrist. And he's using the word blind loosely? Are you freaking kidding me?
That's how I describe it.
any trouble skiing with your right eye?
Never any trouble. And unrestricted skiing. They don't handicap me on the ski slope or driver's license. I'm unlimited. I do fine.
Have a look at this exchange. It's weird.
Were you skiing cautiously?
You know, I've had a long time to think about whether I want to be dangerous or cautious, and I choose cautious. Yes, I don't take chances.
He says he's had a long time to think. What is that really about? He says he's cautious, but we see him, lots of pictures of him, engaging in adrenaline-producing activities. We just saw him in a freaking raft in the rapids, man. At the same time, he does the whole poor me thing. There's an arrogance there. And there's a sense of superiority. He thinks, or seems to think, that everybody else is so stupid that they're going to buy into whatever he's saying. Through this whole thing, he denies, he blames, he hedges, he misdirects, he rewrites history. He says, no, it doesn't mean that, it means this. This guy is so full of you-know-what that they're gonna, I bet they had to open all the courthouse windows when he left to air it out because he was so full of that.
5'8". Yes or no? Yes or no?
Qualified, yes.
No, I don't want to qualify.
I can't
Did you
answer
tell
this.
me that?
Tell
Like
me
I
my-
said, how much do you weigh? And you said 175/80. How much did you weigh? And then you said 5'8". How high are you? How tall are you? 3 inches different, right?
I just found that out. I didn't realize. I've had
Sir,
people telling me that.
You
honestly.
told this jury that at the time of the accident you were 163 and 5'5". Did you not, like 2 hours ago?
I did, yes. Yes.
But you told me in your deposition years ago that you were 170 to 180 and 5'8". True?
How many years ago did we do this?
3 years ago.
I've lost a lot of weight. I'm down to my usual weight.
You know we're interested not now in your weight today. We're interested in your weight on the day.
Thank you. I knew where that was
Do you
going.
agree you were 5'8"?
Yes.
Have you shrunk 3 inches?
I couldn't believe it either. I wanted to argue because I think I'm 5'8" yet.
You do have degenerative back disease, and
didn't-
those
I didn't-
discs are
I've always
getting
been-
squeezed. Is that why?
I have to say yes. I've always been 5'8.5", and I knew I shrunk a half an inch, but 3, wow. It's a lot.
Mr. Sanderson, we're trying in council, let's not speak on top
Thank
of
you.
one another so
Thank
that
you.
we have a clear.
The hand to the heart here, in what appears to be deference to the judge, I think is false deference. There's more to this. I mean, it's obvious he's lying, right? And he sticks to his lie no matter what. There's more to it here than just the fact that he's lying. Again, so why is he lying? What is this about? And I really think that this is tied into his need to see himself as, and have other people see him as masculine, whatever his version of masculine is. I bet it was hard for him to stand beside his lawyer and appear like he's not a big, tall man. And I think it's hilarious and kind of sad how when the lawyer says, oh, do you have this degenerative disc disease? All of a sudden, he has a new diagnosis. So some other thing is offered to him. It doesn't matter whether it's the truth or not. The truth is irrelevant. All that matters is that he gets what he wants, that he can manage everybody else's perception the way he wants, and that he can manage his own perception of himself in the way that he wants.
You had 2 divorces, true?
I did, yes.
And then
So we know he's twice divorced. Now, getting a divorce doesn't mean that you're a threat or that there's something wrong with you. we are looking for patterns, remember. So you just take that information and put it in your brain. So 2 divorces, a series of dating women, angry at his daughter, angry at Robin, I think her name was, and needing to get his way. And so just keep that in mind and look for patterns.
Do you recall saying that you agreed that saying I'm famous was a crazy thing to say? Agree?
Absolutely, it's not me. I don't buy into that.
But it was you, right? Just to be
Right.
clear. When you say it wasn't me, it was in fact you.
It's the other personality that's inhabiting my body right now.
And you blame Gwyneth Paltrow for that.
Yes, no question.
The thing that concerns me here is, well, it's twofold. One is he keeps saying, it's not me, it's not me, it's not me. He's not accepting responsibility. He can't accept that his behavior is his behavior. He did these things. I understand the concept of, gee, that's out of, I believe that's out of character for me, but I suggest that these things are in his character. So as he's declined, perhaps those things have been magnified, but I'm saying that they were there before. And the thing that is scary is he comes out and he says, this other personality inhabiting my body. This is the perfect setup for justification to himself and to other people for doing whatever he wants. You combine that with blame. He blames Gwyneth Paltrow for everything. He's not responsible for anything. The other thing I'm worried about here is any woman who rejects him or has rejected him. Because, you know, this other personality now is inhabiting his body, and he can justify pretty much anything then. So there was some talk too, the Gwyneth Paltrow's lawyer asked a question about whether or not Mr. Sanderson had a breathalyzer installed in his car. And Sanderson's response was, well, it's a handheld one. But that's besides the point. The point is that there's something in his history that's happened or that exists that causes him to either be legally required or for some other reason required to have a breathalyzer. And so that, you know, leads to questions about illegal behavior like drunk driving that puts other people at risk and the willingness to engage in that, and questions in respect to substance abuse. Now, the use of alcohol alone, you know, having a drink, having a few drinks, is not a threat indicator by itself. However, it has to be factored into any threat assessment. And the reason why is that it is a disinhibitor. So it doesn't make a non-violent person violent. What it does do is take off the brakes. So whatever's there in your personality, there are no brakes anymore. And when you've got somebody who's angry, who needs to control, who you know, is after justice and has problems with people, the use of alcohol is going to exacerbate that, is going to magnify that, and it's going to make poor decision making easier. And alcohol is also a depressant.
In terms of your anger, do you agree you sought therapy for anger management about 10 years ago?
I don't.
Or 15 years ago? I guess 06, about the time of your second divorce. Because if you deny it, we're going to pull it up.
I don't remember that purpose, but yes, okay. Was I seeing a shrink or?
So you can't ask me questions, unfortunately.
Sorry, thank you.
Oh, I'm trying to have you say yes or no, and then we go to documents if we need to. So do you agree that you were seeing a therapist at the VA for anger management about 10 years even before the incident?
I honestly don't remember it, but if you say so, I believe you.
Yeah, I can't testify. So if you dispute it, then we go to the record.
I don't look at these records. I have it, 5,000 pages.
So you don't dispute it?
I don't.
Okay.
So we find he does indeed have anger issues. And those issues predated the accident. So this was 2006 that he needed to go for anger management. And when he's asked about this, again, easily provable fact, he obfuscates. He's dancing around. He doesn't want anyone to see that. He says he doesn't remember. This is an example. If you went for anger management because you had issues that rose to the level that you needed to go, how do you not remember that?
Not. I had one time when one friend, there's actually two, but I had one friend when we had planned a trip to Europe, a physician's assistant and my yoga instructor. And she decided right before the trip, Terry, I don't like you anymore. I don't know what's different. You're a different person. I don't like you anymore. And counseled her.
How'd that make you feel?
It's like, oh my gosh, I've known her as long, and one other one as well, as long as I've lived here. Almost 5 years, I'm guessing, at that time. And it's like personality, like that's something that develops from the time you're a child. What do you do about a personality issue? Something's changed. I don't know, more aggressive. And you know what? That lady will not answer her phone or texts. And I have...
Well, we're not going to say her name on...
Yes, another lady that I knew for quite some time, a sweetheart also of a woman. We just got off kilter a little bit. Well, after I told Carlene she had to run, it was a few weeks later, I couldn't realize how lonely I was. Yes, I should have taken more time to absorb that, but I was so lonely because we were together all the time. So I reached out to her, and we spent a couple of activities together, and I couldn't believe the words that came out of her mouth. She said, Terry.
It is hearsay.
So he does have issues with women. And I'm going to suggest this predated the whatever caused his decline. He talks about the relationship with one woman going off kilter. So he's not saying, you know what, we weren't a good match, we didn't have anything in common. The relationship went off kilter. And he's not taking responsibility. Then he goes on to say, I couldn't believe the words that came out of her mouth. So there are two pieces to this. One is he, again, not taking responsibility. It's her. She broke up with him. She rejected him. She said things he didn't like. And the other part is I can't believe what came out of her mouth. He says this also about Carlene, something similar, and it's, I can't believe she would leave me, she wouldn't leave me, she would stay with me. But the fact of the matter is, both women are gone. He is not accepting reality. He just cannot accept that he has anything to do with it. The other thing he does is he's talking about the one woman where, you know, they did a few things together and she wasn't interested for whatever reason. He actually comes out and says, I don't know, maybe I was more aggressive. And that tells me a couple of things. First of all, he knows he's aggressive, whatever aggressive means to him. And more aggressive, which tells me that the aggression, what he sees as aggressive, was present pre-decline and is just exacerbated now. So it's not that it wasn't there. It was, and he knows it. He talks about this woman. He says she won't answer my calls and texts, and he uses calls plural, texts plural, and won't more present tense, not wouldn't, didn't, and that leads me to ask an obvious question, which is there any stalking behavior here? Because certainly there is at least some level of harassing behavior. It's I think pretty normal, if you text somebody and they don't respond, maybe they were busy, maybe they didn't hear the notification for the text, so maybe you call. But if they ignore you, that's your answer. And there's actually two indicators here. One is not listening to no. So she's ignoring him and he's continuing to call and text. And the other is any level of harassment. I'm not saying that somebody who harasses is automatically going to turn into some, monster killer guy. That's not what I'm saying. But this is one of the behaviors that can stand alone as an indicator. So it's not like you need a whole cluster of behaviors or a combination of behaviors. That harassment by itself is always a concern, always warrants further investigation, and always warrants some sort of intervention. And that intervention may come in the form of placing protections around the victim or intervening with the offender in some way. And that doesn't have to be a formal legal intervention, but there has to be something to either counsel him or steer his focus away to something else. Given the list of behaviors, the controlling, the being deceptive, the not listening to no, the harassment, the willingness to lash out, this inability to accept the reality of a situation, that anger that just is sitting below the surface against women, including one of his own daughters. He doesn't like to be told no, especially by women. And I'm concerned about any woman who rejects him, especially if this situation escalates any further. Once he realizes he's lost this, if he has trouble paying the fees involved, if he doesn't see another way, he won't have access to Gwyneth Paltrow because her team is not going to allow that. He may sort of divert his focus to somebody else who has rejected him. He may project that anger somewhere else. So I am concerned about any woman who has rejected him and he's still hanging on to it, or somebody who rejects him in the future.
Never.
Terry, did you cause the ski collision with Miss Paltrow?
Absolutely not. I swear to my God and my family and my other Father in heaven, it's like, no, I did not.
Why did you bring this lawsuit?
This absolutely, and invoking God or religion is bothersome. Notice that when he does this, putting his hand to his heart, that's out of sync with what he's actually saying. This use of God is not about faith. It's not about belief in God or respect for God. In fact, I would suggest that it's actually the opposite of respect for God, because he's using God as a tool to manipulate. So when somebody does this to you, to try and get you to believe them, or to try and hook into you emotionally or spiritually, watch for people who use God as a tool. That's a manipulation, and that's an indicator of deceptiveness, and it's an indicator that this person is a problem.
Why did you bring this lawsuit?
You know, I realized after a period of time that no one believed how serious my injuries were. Just because I wasn't out and interacting continuously didn't mean there was something any wrong with me. I really, really wanted an opportunity. I knew there was damages, and then there was lots of insults added to that singular incident. Lots of insults along the way, dozens of other times where everything went contrary to my value system.
And this business of, everything and contrary to my values, what is everything? I mean, he's talking about a value system, right? So, what's everything? His behavior? Justice? Other people? What is that really about? I think it's about using those tag words like value to again say, this is not who I am. Anything bad, it's somebody else. If it's good, it's me. I'm noble and superior. He does this whole, noble thing throughout as well. Like he's the protector, and he's such a great guy. And now he's invoking God, and he's invoking a value system. And this is straight up manipulation. When you're doing an assessment, the subject's pain or suffering or stress aren't necessarily indicators, but they matter. Somebody who's under a lot of stress, feeling overwhelmed, in a lot of pain, losing a lot, all those things can be precipitating factors to an acting out. They also magnify and exacerbate the situation. This is an example of where you see somebody who seems like a lovely person who all of a sudden just loses it and does something horrible. And people say, oh, he just snapped. He had just so much stress, he just snapped. People don't just snap. Lots of people suffer great stressors and great losses, and they don't go and act out on other people as a result. So stress by itself is not the thing. It's not, oh, he just snapped. All of the elements required to get to escalate and to get somewhere really bad, to go down that bad path, all of those elements are already there. The stress or pain, whether it's physical pain or psychological pain, they exacerbate all of that, and they just add to that load. So it's not the stress itself that causes the problem. I believe that Mr. Sanderson really is suffering. I believe that part. When he talks about, and I don't know exactly how he said it, but basically he's saying he doesn't quite have the words to explain what's going on with him. I believe him. I think he's been unable to effectively explain to anyone else how bad it really is. And I think that people don't understand dynamic disabilities, and with whether it's a brain injury or cognitive decline, and I mean probably a number of other things. Sometimes, you can, one day you can do something and another day you can't, or you do something and you pay for it, and people don't get that. None of that is an excuse for the kind of behavior we've seen, but I do believe that he is suffering. And whether it's him or whether you're, assessing somebody else and looking at a situation where they are suffering, always remember that regardless of what you think of them, regardless of whether or not you like the person, that person is still a human being. And still, and there is room for compassion. You can be compassionate and still keep yourself safe. And there are ways to do that, and one way is to get professionals in to help the individual. So human beings in pain, regardless of who they are, still need and should have help. There's one clip I couldn't get. It's where he is explaining why he launched the suit and what he's hoping to do here. And he speaks of justice, not just for himself, but for other people. And he's portraying himself as somehow noble again. So again, we've got like this savior martyr thing in a way, and this idea that he's noble and he's a right fighter, and his version of justice that he's going to seek. And this is a concern. That kind of thinking will justify whatever action that person wants to take. I'll bet you he will continue to either outright state or at least imply that Gwyneth Paltrow is lying. And for the record, I believed her. I believed her testimony. I think that anybody who disagrees with him or sort of confronts him, calls him on his crap, he's going to say that they're lying. And I think he is going to continue to seek justice in some fashion. And what has to happen is somebody needs to come alongside him and get him to focus on moving forward in his life and not wasting the rest of it on this. The other thing you always have to look at is protective factors. You can make a big list of, oh my gosh, there are all these threat indicators. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the person is going to go off and do something horrible. You have to factor in things like access to victims, like maybe blocked access to victims, protective factors. And in Mr. Sanderson's case, I mean, one of those is his daughters and his grandchildren love him. That's really clear. And they have demonstrated a willingness to support him and to be with him. They have demonstrated that they want to help him. And so they can be a big positive factor and a protection. Another thing to consider is that he does have the capacity to move on. The question is going to be whether he chooses to or not. The other thing that is a protective factor is that he has the ability to, and the personality to meet new people. He's not afraid of that. He can meet new people. He seems to make friends easily. He seems to be able to get people to like him. So that is a protective factor, especially if he himself takes advantage of that and decides to enjoy his life rather than continue to make himself miserable by fighting this particular battle. Mr. Sanderson, in addition to, I know I talked about the image of masculinity, and yes, that's there. He also wants people to perceive him as a friendly, fun guy, and he's gregarious, and fun and great, right? And he's not going to want to lose that image of himself in his own mind or in the minds of other people. And the other thing that I noticed during the trial, there was some discussion that he had reactivated his Meetup account. This is a good thing. That's a good sign, because it shows me that he has an interest in maybe continuing to enjoy his lifestyle. Having said all that, he has gone down this road this far, in spite of all that. Now, maybe he didn't understand the consequences, or maybe he thought he would prevail and be some sort of a hero, and now he's found out that's not how it's going to be. So maybe he'll realize that, you know, taking any further action is not a good idea. But he did choose to ramp up his efforts when he thought he was going to lose, when he didn't get what he wants. When he doesn't get what he wants, he continues to call and text. When he doesn't get what he wants, he pushes and intervenes and does this noble, I'm going to get justice. So, you know, you got to weigh these things out. It's going to be a matter of what he chooses and what kind of help he's getting. There are all kinds of red flags that I already talked about through this whole thing. What I've done here is not a proper threat assessment. It's just, you know, picking up these really obvious red flags and telling you about it so that you can see that in your own life. We know that travel is not a barrier to him. We know that he hangs on to wounds. Like, he's still mad at Robin. So he hangs on to wounds and injustices. All of the mental elements to justify a negative action, they're all there. He can't or won't accept reality. Whether it's the reality that he in fact caused the crash, that all of his suffering is not Gwyneth Paltrow's fault, that, you know, women breaking up with him, he might have something to do with it, that women did break up with him, that a woman isn't interested, all these things. He won't accept reality. We know he has anger issues and issues with women, that he has issues around, you know, being sort of the savior, being a protector, this sort of image of himself that's based on some societal myths. We know that he has access to and proficiency with firearms. We know he uses and possibly abuses alcohol. We know he blames others. We know he can't or won't take responsibility. This case warrants intervention. I'm not alleging here that he poses a threat. I can't allege that because I have not done a proper threat assessment. All I've done, this is for educational purposes, all I've done is take you through and say, oh look, here's an indicator,